My wife left me for another man. Now she wants me back. It was a Tuesday evening when my wife of 8 years dropped the bombshell. I was sitting on the couch, flipping through a news app on my phone, while she paced back and forth in the living room. Her words hit me like a freight train. "I think we need to separate. I've met someone else." I froze, my heart sinking to the pit of my stomach. Someone else? It felt like the world had tilted on its axis, and I was desperately trying to find balance. Turns out she'd been seeing this guy, let's call him Jake, for 6 months. They met at her workplace, and according to her, he just understands me in a way you don't. I remember sitting there speechless, as she listed all the ways I'd failed her. I worked too much. I wasn't romantic enough. I didn't get her. The next few weeks were a blur of divorce papers, awkward logistics, and sleepless nights. She moved in with Jake almost immediately. I thought that was the end of us. Here's the kicker. After the split, I threw myself into self-improvement. Not for her. No, I was done trying to meet her standards, but for me. I started hitting the gym, rediscovered old hobbies, and even got a promotion at work because I stopped spending my energy walking on eggshells around her. Months turned into a year. Life wasn't perfect, but I was starting to find a rhythm again. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message from her. "Can we talk? I made a mistake." I ignored it. She started showing up at places she knew I'd be, mutual friends gatherings, even a coffee shop near my apartment. Each time she tried to strike up a conversation, looking more and more disheveled. One day, curiosity got the better of me. I finally agreed to meet her. She looked nothing like the confident woman who walked out of my life. Her eyes were sunken, her once pristine hair messy. She started crying before I could even sit down. "It's over with Jake," she said, between sobs. "He wasn't who I thought he was. He cheated on me." The irony almost made me laugh. I didn't. "I realize now," she continued, "that I took you for granted. You were always there for me, and I threw it away for nothing. I miss us." Her words might have meant something to me a year ago. But as I looked at her, I realized I didn't feel the same anymore. I had moved on, not to someone else, but to a version of myself that didn't need her validation. I let her talk, pouring out her regrets, but when she asked for another chance, I shook my head. "I'm glad you've realized your mistakes," I said, "but I'm not the man you left behind anymore. And I think you should focus on finding yourself, not clinging to the past." I walked away that day feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt free. And you know what? It feels damn good. A few months passed after that awkward meeting with my ex-wife. Life was peaceful. No drama, no unexpected messages, no reminders of the mess she'd made. I thought I'd close that chapter for good. Then one night, I got home late from work. As I walked up the stairs to my apartment, I noticed someone sitting by my door. It was her. She looked even worse than the last time I'd seen her. Dark circles under her eyes, clothes wrinkled, and a desperate look on her face. "Please," she said, standing up, "just hear me out." I sighed, unlocking the door, but not inviting her in. "Make it quick." She stepped inside anyway. Great. She paced around my living room like a caged animal. "I don't know where else to go," she said, voice shaking. "I'm being evicted. I can't afford rent and my parents." She stopped herself, biting her lip. "They won't help me after what I did to you." That hit me harder than I expected. Her parents had always been kind to me, even during the divorce. They must have been furious with her for leaving me. "I just need a place to crash for a week," she added, her eyes pleading. "I'll find something. I promise." I stared at her, conflicted. Part of me wanted to shut the door in her face, to tell her she'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. But another part of me, the part that remembered the woman I'd loved, felt pity. "1 week," I said finally. "That's it. And only because I'm not heartless." Her relief was almost painful to watch. The first few days were awkward. She kept to herself mostly, sleeping on the couch and barely speaking. I could tell she was trying to avoid upsetting me, which was ironic, considering how much chaos she'd brought into my life before. But then, on the 4th night, I overheard her on the phone. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her voice carried through the thin walls. "I know, okay? I screwed up, she hissed. But I can't just disappear. I'm trying to fix things. Fix things? That's when I realized she wasn't just broke or desperate. She was running from something. Or someone. The next day, while she was out job hunting, I decided to do a little digging. Her social media accounts were mostly abandoned, but her last few posts from months ago painted a grim picture. Vague captions about starting over and hard lessons. Even more curious, Jake's profile was gone entirely. I started connecting the dots, and they painted a troubling picture. Whatever had happened between her and Jake, it hadn't ended well. That night, as we sat eating a quiet dinner, I decided to confront her. "What's really going on, Sarah?" I asked, setting my fork down. She froze, eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. "What do you mean? You didn't just leave Jake because he cheated, did you? There's more to this story." For a moment I thought she'd deny it, but then she broke. Tears spilled down her face as she told me everything. Jake wasn't just a cheater, he was abusive. After the affair wore off, he started controlling her, isolating her from her friends and family, and eventually, it got physical. She left him, but not before he made it clear that he wouldn't let her go easily. "He's been following me," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's why I'm here. I didn't know where else to go." That was the moment everything changed. My pity turned to anger, not at her, but at him. No one deserved what she'd gone through, not even someone who'd broken my heart. But as she sat there, trembling and vulnerable, I made a decision. "Stay as long as you need," I said firmly. "We'll figure this out." She looked at me with a mixture of relief and confusion. "Why would you help me after everything I did to you?" I shrugged. "Because it's the right thing to do." What I didn't tell her was that I wasn't just going to sit by and let Jake get away with this. The next day, I made a few calls. Turns out, when you've got friends in the right places, it's not hard to make life hell for someone like him. But that's just a story for another day. A storm is coming. The plan wasn't to get involved any further than offering her a safe place to stay. But as the days went on, it became clear that Jake wasn't just a bad memory for Sarah. He was a looming threat. It started with strange phone calls. The first time, Sarah answered. She froze, pale as a sheet, before hanging up and locking herself in the bathroom. I didn't push her for details, but then I started getting calls too. Late at night, always silence on the other end. The breaking point came a week later. I came home from work to find a brick smashed through my living room window. Taped to it was a note scrawled in messy, aggressive handwriting, "Stay out of this or you'll regret it." I was furious, not scared, furious. This guy had already destroyed Sarah's life, and now he thought he could intimidate me. "You need to call the police," I told Sarah, holding up the note. Her hands trembled as she read it, but she shook her head. "It won't help," she said. "He knows how to cover his tracks. He'll just come back angrier." That's when I realized Jake wasn't just a problem. He was a predator. And predators don't stop until they're forced to. The next day, I called in a favor. My best friend Mark is an ex-Marine who runs a private security business. I told him everything. "Sounds like this guy needs a reality check," Mark said with a grim smile. "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." Mark and his team set up surveillance around my apartment. They planted cameras, monitored phone activity, and even followed Jake's trail online. What they found made my blood boil. Jake wasn't just harassing Sarah, he was stalking other women too. His social media accounts, though deleted, left a digital footprint that told a disturbing story. Fake profiles, threatening messages, even evidence of him showing up uninvited to women's homes. Mark called me one night. "We've got enough to take to the cops," he said. "But if you want to send him a stronger message, I've got something in mind." I didn't even hesitate. "Do it." The next evening, Jake made his move. Mark had predicted it. His team spotted Jake's car parked down the street, watching my apartment like a vulture. Around midnight, Jake stepped out, carrying something under his jacket. That's when Mark's guys moved in. The moment Jake stepped onto my property, two men in black appeared out of nowhere, pinning him to the ground. One of them, a brick of a man named Tom, leaned in close and whispered something into Jake's ear. Whatever he said, it made Jake go pale. I stepped outside, standing on the porch as Mark approached with a satisfied grin. "You want to say anything to him?" Mark asked, motioning to Jake. Jake looked up at me, his face a mixture of rage and fear. "You think this is over?" he spat. I smiled coldly. "It is for you. You're going to leave Sarah alone. You're going to leave everyone alone. And if I hear otherwise, Mark's team will pay you another visit. Except next time, they won't be this polite." Jake tried to laugh it off, but Tom tightened his grip, and the sound died in his throat. "We'll make sure he gets the message," Mark said, pulling Jake to his feet. "He won't bother you again." The aftermath was almost anticlimactic. Jake disappeared. Mark's team kept an eye on things for a while, but there were no more calls, no more threats. Sarah stayed for another week, but things between us were complicated. She was grateful, but I could tell she felt out of place. "I need to figure out who I am," she told me one morning over coffee. "I can't keep relying on you to save me." I nodded. "Take your time. Just don't forget what you're worth." She left later that day. It's been months since then. Every so often, I get a text from Sarah letting me know how she's doing. She's in therapy now, working through the damage Jake caused. She even landed a new job in a different city. As for me, life's quieter these days. But every so often, when I walk past the living room window that was once shattered, I catch myself smiling. Because no matter how messy things got, one thing's for sure, I took back control of my life, and I made damn sure no one else could take it away again.